Let's talk about this visit now to Nigeria from our President Jacob Zuma. He starts this two-day state visit tomorrow. Relations with the West African powerhouse have been, I think, uneasy, one could say, over the past few years. And President Zuma will be looking to improve political and economic ties. Well, let's get more detail from our reporter on the ground in Abuja, Sophia Adengo. Sophia, a very good morning to you. I can only imagine that there is an air of anticipation ahead of this visit from our president, who is expected to, I think, touch down sometime this afternoon.
Good morning, Leanne. Yes, indeed. I would say that you are correct in saying there's anticipation for President Jacob Zuma's visit. The last 6 months or so, let's say, for Nigeria and South Africa have been, as analysts say, tense, especially with the escalation of MTN and the Nigerian government really escalating when it comes to security breaches and a ban of almost $5 billion placed on MTN as a result of these security breaches. So it's a very interesting landscape when it comes to the economy and economics here in Nigeria, but also on an interesting note, politically as well. President Jacob Zuma is coming with a rather large contingent. It's estimated that he is traveling with almost 6 ministers, to include his foreign affairs minister, trade and relations minister, along with some other key ministers and heads, the defense minister traveling as well with him. And they will be arriving today here in Nigeria, hoping to sit down and meet with President Muhammadu Buhari in their first real encounter since May 28th, when President Muhammadu Buhari was, sworn in, and President Jacob Zuma was here for that. So it should be rather interesting to see how, there's dialogue and in which direction that dialogue takes place. Leanne?
Yeah. I mean, Sophia, when we look at the businesses that are operating in Nigeria, we're talking about 120 businesses. You've already spoken about what happened with MTN and that fine, and no doubt that's going to be on top of the agenda. There's also an issue of MultiChoice, and I know MultiChoice operating in Nigeria, somewhat of a monopoly, and not many people are very happy about this. So I can imagine that's also another discussion. And then surely something that must come up is if we take our minds back to a time when the fighting against Boko Haram and the buying of weapons on the black market here in South Africa to a tune of multi-million rands being spent. So there is, I can imagine there's a lot of nerves ahead of this meeting because, relations are not as smooth as we would like them to be.
Well, it's interesting. If you can start with small and medium businesses, Nigeria offers such a large market for South African business in terms of retail and telecom and banking. And a lot of those South African companies have found Nigeria to be an exciting place to do business, expanding their territory and expanding their networks here. I think the bigger issue really is how those relations are affecting, Nigeria in terms of welcoming South African business, and that relationship was really brokered by what was called the Binational Commission, which was formed back in 1999 to help, smoothen out any kind of queries that perhaps South African, businesses would have with the Nigerian government. And it was hoped that this body would help in terms of, addressing issues that seem to escalate, especially like the one seen with MTN. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked as well as both parties would have liked in terms of South Africa and Nigeria. So I suppose the visit with Jacob Zuma is readdressing the function of that body. And moving away from business and now to security, there is no doubt that President, Muhammadu Buhari has been really canvassing not only the African Union, while he went to visit South Africa early last year, the African Union holding in South Africa and really putting forward a case that there must be cooperation not only with South Africa, but African countries in bringing down this, insurgency. And his plea, President Muhammadu Buhari, is that terrorism does not only affect Nigeria, but will affect South Africa and the greater, continent, if not the world. So it's no doubt that the defense minister traveling with President Jacob Zuma arriving today is really probably one of the major key elements in talking about how both countries can partner and cooperate in the area of security, much needed for Nigeria here. Leanne.
Sophia, let's leave it there for now. We're certainly going to be talking to you again, hopefully in the next hour, but definitely between the course of this week and the visit of our state president, Jacob Zuma, is going to be having his very first meeting with the Nigerian president, Muhammad Buhari. And of course, this is quite a tense time because there's a lot of issues that need to be smoothed out between the two leaders. And let's hope that this meeting will bring some details to the fore.